Yuta Okkotsu is the most reliable character in Jujutsu Kaisen, being the person that Gojo Satoru himself trusts the most, always getting the job done no matter what mission it is, and he proved himself once more by taking down Kenjaku, a character who was being hyped up for possibly being the main antagonist, somebody that could have been more dangerous than Sukuna despite not being as strong, and yet Yuta was able to take him down and make him back to the fight safely. But he now has to face his toughest opponent yet, Ryomen Sukuna, which brings us to this question: do Yuta and Rika stand a chance against Sukuna? In this video, we're going to talk about why Yuta is so impressive, as well as whether or not he stands a chance against Sukuna. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe, but only if you enjoy, and get this video to 200 likes or any video you would like to suggest. But before we get into it, I have an announcement for you. If you're looking for some good quality clothing at a good price, look no further than Anime Express. Whether you're looking for comfort or style, they would have everything you need. Literally everything from all of your favorite series. Of course, they have Jujutsu Kaisen, but they also have a multitude of other series. And on top of basic clothing, they have all sorts of accessories, whether it is for you or simply to decorate your house. Things such as bonnets, rings, lights, or whatever you would want. If you want to support my channel or simply get some good clothing for yourself, go over at animeexpress.store. And before your purchase, don't forget to use code GodlyOmen10 for 10% off. Hopefully you find something for you, and thanks to Anime Express for sponsoring this video. And now, let's get into it. The first thing I would like to talk about is about Yuta making it back safely to the fight. As I said in my last Yuta video that unfortunately got copyrighted, there was nothing that Kenjaku would have done, for the simple fact that he said my will would be inherited. He wouldn't say my will if it was something that he was planning to do himself. So for me, it was pretty obvious that it was over for him. Now I still thought that his body was going to release a whole bunch of cursed spirits, but that didn't happen, or at least we do not have any information about it. And in the last chapter, we finally learned what Kenjaku contingency plan was, and it was by giving the rights to the merger to Sukuna. But this situation of course has a couple implications. Since Sukuna is way tougher than Kenjaku, it will be basically impossible to stop him from activating it. But on the other hand, Sukuna is not as crazy as Kenjaku was, and he wouldn't just do that for sick curiosity. But considering how he is currently feeling, there's still a chance of him doing it, but it's still giving us more time than Kenjaku would have. So of course this situation has its ups and downs. A lot of people think that Sukuna got another buff and became more overpowered, but I honestly do not think so. I don't think that he became any stronger, he simply got the right to activate the merger whenever he decides to, which means that if there was a chance to defeat him before, there's still a chance to do so. The next thing I want to talk about is the way people treat Yuta for sneaking Kenjaku. The whole point of this was to take care of Kenjaku with the least difficulty possible, because going from suffering multiple casualties against any one of those two to then go to the other would have been insane. Yuta being able to get the job done against Kenjaku was by far the best thing that could have happened, because now there's no reason to worry about who's going to fight Kenjaku and who's going to fight Sukuna, which in the end gives a way higher chance of winning. The craziest thing about this situation is that Kenjaku, out of all people, is the person that doesn't deserve a fair fight. We are talking about the evil sorcerer that committed multiple crimes over the years, who always ends up doing whatever he wants or needs in shameless manners, wanting to kill children because they are this size, sneaking Gojo to seal him inside of the prison realm, using his friend's body knowing that it will prevent Gojo from doing anything. Kenjaku, who's been alive for over 1,000 years, who always finds ways to do whatever he needs in the most shameless manners possible. People are not trying to defend him, saying that Yuta is a fraud for sneaking him. Out of all people, this man does not deserve anything. Or even in the case of Toji and Gojo, Toji waiting for Gojo to be worn out after 3 days of hard work, 3 days of no sleep and consistently having his infinity active. Even though he failed to finish him in one hit, he was still able to kill him in the end, for the simple fact that Gojo was tired and Toji had the perfect tools to take him down. For this, he has been called a genius. But when Yuta appears behind Kenjaku after a long fight against the comedian and then cuts his head off, all of a sudden he is a fraud. The problem here is that some people don't even care about the story, all they care about is their own agendas. Because what Yuta just did against Kenjaku makes him pretty much unscalable. Even though he clearly blitzed Kenjaku before cutting him, we still know that Kenjaku was off guard to begin with, and we don't know how the comedian technique actually works. We don't know if he was just mentally weakened or if he was also physically weakened. There's too many factors to take in consideration to actually scale this feat. A lot of people hate that because there is no way to compare Yuta to Kenjaku. While I understand the fact that this could have been a very cool fight, I still don't understand what part of this makes Yuta a fraud. Now let's look at this situation in the different different perspective. Imagine they never sent Takaba and Yuta decided to go to the fight by himself. Kenjaku would have set up multiple traps, would have probably run away, and even if they ended up getting into a fight, he would have had all sorts of curses, counters, and multiple things that he could use against Yuta, because he would have prior knowledge of him being here and would have set him up on purpose. Kenjaku was not going to wait on Yuta for a fair fight, so why would Yuta pull up on Kenjaku for a fair fight and make things harder for himself? It's just the lack of logic in those situations that annoy me the most. But now it's time to talk about whether or not he can compete with Sukuna. The first thing to notice is that Yuta and Rika obviously got way stronger. We can not only see Yuta react to one of Sukuna's slashes and parrying it with his sword, but we can also notice the massive increase in Rika's size. My only explanation for her getting this big will be that their bond got even stronger. During the last month before the Battle of the Strongest, everybody trained and some of them were able to get stronger in a small amount of time. Starting with Yuji, who was able to learn reverse curse technique and probably has a curse technique of his own. Or even Higuruma, who became such a monster, somebody able to learn things only from seeing it once. And now we have Yuta pulling up to the fight, ready to try and fight Sukuna. But despite being this strong, there's obviously no way for him to win on his own. Also from the fact that it is not only obvious, but it has also been established by Gege himself that the King of Curses was way stronger than the Queen. And I don't think adding Yuta to the equation will change so much. But I did see some theories that were pretty interesting, something that would give him a way to get an edge against Sukuna. And the most important things for this plan are Yuta's domain expansion and Maki. I don't think that Yuji should participate in this part of the fight for the simple reason that Yuta's sure hit will hit him too, unless there's a way to avoid Yuji being hit by it, like for example contact between Yuji and Yuta, or Yuta's domain being the exception that allows him to hit who he wants and not everybody. But until we get that information, we're going to assume that everybody gets hit by the sure hit. Yuta will be immune because of course it is his own domain. Rika would also be immune because she is part of the curse technique, as well as Maki because the domain cannot sense her. Maki would then consent to enter the domain. No matter how strong Sukuna is, he's going to take some form of damage if he gets hit by Yuta's sure hit, but also considering the fact that his RCT is looking very slow. The plan here is for Yuta, Rika, and Maki to jump Sukuna. Sukuna would have to worry about Yuta because of his sure hit. As we've seen at the end of the last chapter, Rika is strong enough to where Sukuna cannot just brush her off. We see him kind of struggling while being crushed by Rika. Of course, it shouldn't be hard for him to get out of this position, but it still shows some relevance. Sukuna still has to use some strength in order to push her off. All this will result in Sukuna being jumped by a giant Rika, Maki who he cannot sense, who possesses a weapon that can be dangerous to him, as well as Yuta himself, Gojo Satoru's second. All this while having to worry about the sure hit that would take a toll on him. And while this sounds like a pretty good theory and a pretty good strategy to use against him, I still think that if he goes fully serious, it will be way faster than all of them and it will still be hard for them to keep up. I still stand by the fact that Yuta should not be stronger or faster than Kashimo, and if Sukuna was able to be this much faster than him, I don't see Yuta being able to keep up either. But this is where strategy comes in play. With the right game plan, they should be able to fight back against Sukuna. Even though they might not be able to defeat him that way, they could buy some time for Yuji. Yuji, who is waiting outside the barrier, could have something either related to the soul or something else that could counter Sukuna. Of course, none of this is going to be easy, but there are still possibilities. We still have characters like Kusakabe and Ino. Even though they aren't that strong, they could find ways to be useful in this fight. I also still believe that Shoso is alive, meaning that he would also contribute in this fight. Of course, we can't forget about Nobara, who was never confirmed dead, but I can hardly see a moment that would fit her coming back. As I said before, if there was a perfect time for her to come back, it would have been during the calling games. But who knows, Gege might be able to surprise me once again. If you are looking at this situation from a 1v1 perspective, with the way the matchup was announced at the end of the last chapter, I don't think that Yuta or the Queen of Curses stands a chance against Sukuna. But if you ask me whether or not there was a chance of Sukuna losing in this fight, I would tell you that it's highly possible. I hope you enjoyed this video. Get it to 200 likes if you enjoy, and I will see you next time. Peace.